the top 5 coaches in college football today. If you ask 5 different people, I think you get 5 different lists. Let me know in the comment section who your top 5 coaches are. But I want to give you my top 5. And before we get to my top 5, I want to give you my criteria. All right, this is the main factors when it came to putting together this top 5. And it is difficult to keep it to 5. We almost went top 10, but figured that would be too long of a segment, so maybe another day. Track record is extremely important to us. Now, track record, there's an emphasis on having a spotlight on where you are right now, and that'll make a little bit more sense when we get into this, but like we're grading your track record a little bit on a curve. Like having a job at a G5 school and doing well there, we look at that differently than you being successful at a school in a power conference, okay? So that matters to us. Recruiting, but not recruiting specifically just at the high school level. We're also factoring in recruiting at the portal level because of modern college football, that is becoming increasingly more important and definitely a part of the game, a part of your success. Now, here's the big one. This is one that I think was a key differentiator for us as we put this top 5 together. Trajectory. And not just trajectory over the course of the next 10 years. I'm talking trajectory specifically in the sense of, can this coach win a national title in the next 2 seasons? That was really important to us. Then also, culture. I mean, hey, we understand this now. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to be able to put a good roster together. It's important. It's difficult to do, but to really separate yourself, you got to have a winning culture. And all 5 of our coaches on this list, without question, have a winning culture. So before we get to that, make sure you're subscribed. A lot of y'all that are watching live, we appreciate you for that. But if you're watching this as a one-off video, get in this live show with us. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern. The best way to make sure you don't miss it, making sure you are subscribed to the On3 YouTube channel. All right, let's get to it. At number 5, we got Mike Norvell from Florida State. And Florida State, think about where they were before Mike Norvell got there. They were down bad. They've always been this premier brand in college football, but they had been struggling the last couple of years before he got there. And Mike Norvell, going back to our criteria, hasn't knocked it out of the park on the high school side of things. And that's tough to do when you're not winning how they wanted to win when he got there. So what does he do? He sees an opportunity. He sees a tool. He sees an area of need on his roster, and he attacks the portal. And last year, they had the number 11 ranked class, I believe, on the transfer portal team rankings. I think after the dust settled, it was very fair to put them within that top 5 in terms of what they got out of that portal class. Keon Coleman, I think, was one of the best transfer portal acquisitions of the entire transfer portal cycle previously. The high school recruiting side of things is getting there. Right now, they have a top 5 class on the transfer portal side of things for this cycle. And the key thing for them is they use that portal and those players to pass up what was at that point in time the big dog in the ACC, that was Clemson. We got to see that up close and personal in Death Valley, South Carolina. And play after play was made by a player in garnet and gold that was not on Florida State's roster a season ago. And that was the difference in that game. He's 31-17 at Florida State with 1 ACC title to his name. The fact that he elevated Florida State back to the top of, or the tier 1 rather, of the college football landscape, I think matters. And that speaks to the kind of coach that he is, because whenever you have problems and you're struggling to win at a big brand, typically the problem stretches deeper than just your roster. Typically there's something within it from a structural point of view within that coaching staff, or the culture isn't great from different points. And so for him to be able to fix that, and for Florida State to give him the time to fix that, and for him now to have back-to-back double-digit win seasons in Tallahassee and moving forward into an expanded playoff where I think Florida State will be a routine visitor to that expanded playoff, Mike Norvell, without question, has an opportunity to win a national title in these next 2 seasons. And I think what he's done to elevate Florida State from where he was to where they are now, can't say enough good things about Mike Norvell. Without question, a top 5 coach in the sport for our money. All right, so Mike Norvell at number 5. Now at number 4, we got Ryan Day. And this is one that I think we might get some pushback on. That's more than fine. Here's what I would say. Don't let Twitter detract you or detract from what's actually real with Ryan Day. Don't let punchline culture paint a picture of who Ryan Day is as a coach and what's real about Ryan Day as a coach. Because what's real about Ryan Day as a coach is his record. 56-8. People are going to say, I can't win the big game, can't beat Michigan, all this, that, and the other, and that's fine. They said a lot of those things about Kirby Smart, about not being able to win the big game at a certain point in his career. Ryan Day, I believe, still developing, still evolving as a head coach. 56-8. Urban Meyer hasn't been there since 2018. So all this talk around he's born on third base and he's just living off the Buckeye brand. I'm not telling you that Urban Meyer didn't leave him a good situation with that roster. I'm not telling you that Ohio State brand doesn't have some staying power to it. But there's a lot of brands that have staying power that haven't, one, recruited how Ohio State has recruited, top 5 pretty much every single year. Also, a lot of big brands that haven't won how Ohio State has won with Ryan Day being the head coach there. So a lot made about what he hasn't done as a head coach. Look at what he has done. Several first-round quarterbacks he's helped develop. I mean, of his 8 losses, 3 of those are to an individual who's now going to be a head coach of the National Football League. There's only 32 of those jobs, and 2 of those other losses were one to a guy who is pretty high on this list, we'll get to in a second, and the other is the greatest of all time in Nick Saban. So, of those 8 losses, I understand it's never a good thing to lose a football game. You never want to qualify a loss, but looking at what he's done, 87% of his games he has won. That is ridiculous. If Ryan Day were on the market tomorrow, I think 98% of the country, 98% of the other jobs, Ryan Day would be an upgrade for. So definitely one of the best coaches in the country for my money. Ohio State has the second best odds to win the national title this season. A big reason for that, the way Ryan Day has attacked the transfer portal, adding Caleb Downs, adding Quinshon Judkins. Heck, they got Julian Sain just because they feel like it. Ohio State and Ryan Day, I believe, in good position in 2024. Ryan Day, for us, a top 5 coach in the game today. Now let's get to this top 3. This is where it gets a little bit juicy here. Steve Sarkisian at number 3. And I was talking with Trey Annity before we got on air here, one of our producers here at On 3. And I ran through our top 5, and I had Steve Sarkisian at 3, and he kind of grimaced a little bit. My first thought was, yeah, well, I understand, that they've had sustained success here for a short period of time, sustained success. They've had success for a short period of time here at Texas. I understand that. Thinking he thought that Steve Sarkisian was too high. When in reality, Trey thought Steve Sarkisian should have been higher on this list. So all that's to say, I think he is one of the best coaches in the game, obviously with him being number 3 on our list. Think about how many coaches have tried and failed at Texas. There was a point in time where there was a feeling around the Texas job, at least from the college football public point of view, where hey, I don't know if you want to take on that kind of venture. I don't know if that's a winnable situation because of the culture that's on that roster, because of how involved the boosters are, because of the lack of patience on, in the 40 acres. That was kind of the perception before Steve Sarkisian took it over. Think about the way we talk about Texas now. We talk about Texas as being a contender in the SEC, not just in the Big 12. They won the Big 12 last year, and that's great. We talked about, their potential for what they should have done in 2023, and that was always the word we threw around, right? Potential this, potential that. We're not talking about potential anymore for Texas. We're talking about adding on to what they did a season ago. So the lift that he had to lift Texas to where they are now, similar to where Mike Norvell took Florida State to, it was a heavy lift. I truly believe that. He had to booster the involvement of I'll rephrase that. The booster involvement as a whole, I think, was too much, so Steve Sarkisian had to manage that. There were development issues at Texas. He had to restructure that. The roster, there was talent there, but they didn't have it at the right spots where they needed it to be. Most crucially, the culture was not at the elite tier where they needed it to be to win national championships. He fixed all those things in 3 seasons. 5-7, 8-5, went 12-2 last year with the Big 12 title and a college football playoff appearance to their name. So there's extra pressure at a place like Texas. Steve Sarkisian has been able to win with all that extra pressure there. I don't know if anyone besides the people that are ahead of him on this list could have done what he's done at Texas. That's a difficult place to win, a difficult place to get them back to where you expect them to be. He's recruited at a really high level as well. They enter into the SEC in a position of power. He had a top 5 class, a number 3 class last year, and right now the number 6 class in the On3 industry team recruiting rankings, using the portal to their advantage, adding Isaiah Bond, adding Silas Bolden, going to get Andrew Makuba, one of the best safeties in the portal. They've used the portal to their advantage. Texas could win it all this year. And I'm not just saying that to try and make a case for Steve Sarkisian being top 3 on our list. I mean, by nature of how they've built this roster, by nature of where the culture's at, Steve Sarkisian has elevated Texas to where it's not a crazy thing to say anymore. Texas could win the whole thing. That used to be just sort of burnt orange Kool-Aid talk. That used to just be sort of overly ambitious Texas fan talk. Texas is now at a place where Steve Sarkisian has made them a national title contender. And we're not wondering about where they sit when they enter into the SEC. I think they enter into the SEC as one of the top teams in that conference, right up there with the Georgia, with LSU. And they beat Bama last year with Nick Saban in Tuscaloosa by double digits. and they bring back Quinn Ewers. So that doesn't factor into why Steve Sarkisian's one of the top 3 coaches in the game right now for us. Quinn Ewers coming back, but I do think what he's done to elevate them and build them back up when they were down low for a long time, Steve Sarkisian, I believe wholeheartedly, a top 5 coach in the sport today. Now, getting into our top 2 here, this is where it gets a little bit less tricky to break down. But at number 2, we got Brian Kelly. And for Brian Kelly, I think he is as sure a thing as there is in college football. He's coached almost 400 games, won 73% of them. At Notre Dame, he won, was 92-40. Now winning at LSU, I believe he's 20-7 with back-to-back double-digit win seasons. They played for the SEC title his first year in the conference. He is as good as there is in the game in installing structure into a program. Because think about where LSU was when he got there. Yes, they had kind of come off this, national title letdown sort of couple of years, and they still had talent on the roster, but it was just it was anarchy. There was no real direction, there was no structure, there was no harmony, and their first year there, Brian Kelly and that staff install a way of doing things, and they have success from the jump. Make it to Atlanta. Last year, the defense struggled, was not nearly good enough, still found a way to win 10 games. So it's a tough stretch that's going on here for the good folks that have been saying Brian Kelly's not a fit, he's not going to recruit, he doesn't want to recruit. All I've seen from him so far is top 10 classes. And currently in the 2025 industry team recruiting rankings for us here at On 3, they have the number 1 class. So Brian Kelly's cooking. And when we look at LSU in a macro level, I think for the Brian Kelly era in Baton Rouge, it is a matter of when, not so much if they win a national title. They've had 3 coaches win a national title the last 15 years. They're using the portal as a tool. Brian Kelly is adapting when it comes to things he has to fix within LSU's staff. They revamped the defensive side of the ball on the coaching side of things. I love where they're headed, and I truly believe Brian Kelly can make LSU a national champion, not just a national title contender, national champion in these next 2 years. A very big part of that will be Garrett Nussmeier and his success. So Brian Kelly for us, again, just as sure a thing as there is in college football, and I believe he's the second best coach right now in the game in college football. Now, at number 2, no secret, man, it's Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart's the best coach in college football right now. Titles talk. Like, he's won 2 in the last 3 years, national championships, that is. And let's be real, probably has had the best team in college football the last 3 years. And that's a lot of woulda, shoulda, coulda. If Brock Bowers was healthy, if Ladd McConkey was healthy, if this, if that. I'm not here to get into that. But you look at Georgia. Georgia hasn't lost more than 2 games in the regular season since 2016. Since Kirby Smart's first year there. 2 regular season losses, no more than that. That's absurd. Nobody is better at consistently acquiring talent today than Kirby Smart, always a top 3 class. But it's not just the fact that they acquire a top 3 class. It's the fact that they acquire top talent, they develop top talent. I think the environment Kirby Smart has created is elite standards with an insane amount of trust. A great example of that is Carson Beck. Carson Beck gets to Georgia as a high-profile recruit, waits his turn, doesn't play for the better part of 3 years. Eventually gets his chance, shoots up draft boards, is going to come back for another year, but could have gone to the NFL this year and I believe been a pretty solid round draft pick. Not as high as he wants to go, but you hear the sentiment I'm saying here. At Georgia, if you buy in, if you wait your turn, you will eventually get the results that you want to get. And that's rare in the modern college football era to be able to have that much buy-in to your way of doing things, because in today's era of college football, it's a lot of, I want what I want now. And I'm not saying guys don't still transfer out of Georgia. I'm just saying overall, I think the level of buy-in he's created is why Georgia's as good as they are and why they don't go to the portal as much as some other teams do. So Kirby Smart continues to adapt. The next part of his career, the next part of his journey is kind of this Saban evolution, if you will. And the Saban evolution is really just the things around you start to change. Most notably your staff. Anytime you have success in college football, especially from a staff level, people see that. They say, okay, how can we bottle some of what you have and put it on our team? So people go out and try and get your offensive coordinator. Todd Monken goes to the NFL. People want to hire your defensive coordinator. Dan Lanning gets a head coaching job at Oregon. And all that Kirby Smart has done is continued to win, continue to compete at the highest level, and the results really haven't changed all that much for Georgia over the course of that Saban evolution for him. Kind of like we saw at Alabama with Nick Saban having revolving door coordinators. I expect Kirby Smart to continue to have his staff poached and the personnel to continue to change, and for Georgia to continue to win and continue to be a big dog in college football. Food for thought, they are the favorite right now in Vegas to win the national title in 2024. So to recap it for you, our top 5 coaches in college football today. Number 5, we got Mike Norvell. At number 4, we got Ryan Day. At number 3, we got Steve Sarkisian. The way he's elevated Texas cannot be ignored. Number 2, we got Brian Kelly. And at number 1, no surprise, we got Kirby Smart. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.